The crypto market is shaping up to be unlike anything we've ever seen. In other words, this time truly is different. And I'm going to show you in at least 3 different charts how this time is not only different, but why I believe we are still in a bull market and will very likely see some rallies for new all-time highs by the end of the year, unless a few things happen, which I'll show you on the charts. Not only that, but it is confirmed that essentially on November 13th, some very big things are going to take place for XRP, and we'll be diving into a cryptic tweet from Gemini, the exchange launched by the Winklevoss twins, stating that next week's looking real XRP coded. We'll be covering statements from Ray Dalio, one of the smartest financial minds in the world, and how he is stating that the current global financial system is currently flooding into gold and how their actions speak volumes, and then what is coming for the market. And then finally, how the CTO of Ripple, David Schwartz, recently made a statement and dropped a truth bomb about the XRP ledger versus all other blockchains. So stick around until the end, because we might be experiencing one of the most interesting Novembers in crypto market history, especially if you're an XRP holder. And also, if you plan to retire with crypto and currently have a 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, or have none of the above, but you're looking to take advantage of a tax advantage crypto account where you can invest in all sorts of tokens, not only the majors, but cryptos that most IRA providers do not offer. Things like World Liberty Financial, Ondo, Solana, HBAR, Stellar, and the list goes on. Then check this out.
Do you love crypto, but are you worried about taxes shrinking your retirement nest egg? Here's the deal. Trading and selling crypto can trigger capital gains taxes, eating into your wealth. A crypto IRA fixes that. Per IRS publication 590B, traditional IRA gains like those from crypto aren't taxed until distributed. That's why we've partnered with iTrust, a leading crypto IRA company in the USA, to sponsor today's video. And they offer institutional grade custody for retail clients that want to set up their crypto IRAs for retirement, leveraging top storage solutions like Fidelity, Wells Fargo, and Coinbase Prime to keep your assets secure. To get started, simply click the link in the description of this video, sign up for free, and fund your account with cash. They also offer 401k rollovers or crypto transfers, and you can trade 24/7 with just 1% transaction fees and no maintenance costs. As always, I'm not a CPA or financial advisor, so consult one for tax advice, and we do earn a commission if you sign up using our link below to fund your crypto IRA account, but that helps support value-based videos like this. And iTrust Capital already has over 200,000 crypto IRA accounts and over $14 billion in transactions, proving they're trusted by smart investors just like you. So click the link below, get started now by funding your account today, and let's create generational wealth together.
So head on over to the link in the description below. You'll land on a page that looks like this, and when you use the promo code BULLRUN9, you will get a $100 funding bonus. But hustle, because this offer is eventually going to expire, and we're not exactly sure when. Now let's dive into the video. Hello and welcome back to the Bull Runners YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Paul. You can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PAULIEDEFI. We actually just experienced one of the weakest Octobers in about 7 years. On average, October is a really strong performing month where the crypto market, being that Bitcoin is one of the largest, experiences tremendous gains at an average of 27%. And typically the rest of the crypto market follows or starts rallying for new local highs. That said, in 2024, we saw a 9.6% return. In 2023, a 28% return. Heck, even in 2022, a very poor month, or year I should say, we still experienced a 5% gain. This October, we've been really range bound, and Bitcoin is down 4.52%. And the last time this occurred was in 2018, and the time before that, 2014. Very close to the inception of Bitcoin in one of its earlier trade years. And so what tends to be an extremely strong month for the entire crypto market has been very weak and lackluster. As you can see in these lines right here, I have the price action on Bitcoin, and when you look over at XRP, it's traded virtually the same with a bit more volatility considering it is a smaller market. So in situations where you have, let's say, hundreds of millions of dollars of sell volume, it can actually dump the market quite a bit. This was a 50 50% dump where this dip was bought all the way up from 158 back up to 250 for an entire dollar worth of price action in a single 15-minute time frame. That said, XRP is down currently from $3 to about $2.50, a 50% drop in the month of October, while Bitcoin saw about a 5% loss through the month of October. So again, both are down and both markets are highly correlated. The only major difference, and this is why I say this time truly is different, we're going to start to look at some data to show and prove that we are still currently in a bull market. I'm currently sitting on a 3-day time frame, and when I zoom back out, okay, and we look at this Bitcoin seasonality chart looking at October, an average gain of 27%, extremely high. I mean, especially when you look at years like 2021, heck, even 2023, we saw a 28% gain, which is massive. But I'm focused on these red months right here, the 4.52%, the 4.67%, and then even in 2014 with a 10% loss. Again, more volatility in these early years being that it was a very small market. Okay, and I'm going to focus only on October. And as you can see here, in this situation, October of 2018, where Bitcoin was down, we were already in a bear market where Bitcoin had peaked off, and then October came in, and by the months of November and December, Bitcoin absolutely puked. Okay, so we were in the throes of a bear market when Bitcoin was down in that year. The exact same thing happened in October of 2014. Notice the top came in, then we saw October where we were putting in lower highs and lower lows, and then in November, December, and January, we puked. So first and foremost, this time is actually different because you can see that we're not in the throes of an actual bear market right now. All we've seen is a bottom in 2022, and then we've seen our actual all-time high at about $126,000 come into October. This month, although it was very lackluster, is near new all-time highs where Bitcoin has failed to perform. And it's actually been quite a time that we've been stuck in this range, struggling to break for strong gains, consistently ranging for 168 days. Heck, even when we broke out to 122,000, it's been over 100 days. So this is unlike anything we've ever seen before in a bull market, and I believe it's because of a few different factors. The first factor is the fact that we're consistently seeing Bitcoin ripped off exchanges in mass. This is a chart that I consistently reference to know whether we're seeing extreme demand or loads of supply. In this case, there simply is not enough supply to keep up with the demand, especially when you look at the right-hand side of the chart. And when we really dive in even to that July 14th top with a few spikes to the upside and downside for this broadening top type of a situation, more and more Bitcoin has left exchanges. Even we started flattening out right through this range in October. October, we didn't see as much Bitcoin bought and removed from exchanges, but then right here at this peak on October 26th, you see another little dump, indicating that there is still demand for Bitcoin and less Bitcoin is available. So one day when there is more demand and less supply, the price inevitably has to go up. And when the price goes up for Bitcoin, it's likely going to follow for XRP, which we will cover on the chart here shortly. To further confirm this fact, the largest ETF in the world, the BlackRock IBIT ETF, has been the fastest growing ETF in BlackRock history. Going all the way back to January of 2024 when it launched, you can see that they've consistently been accumulating, according to this orange line, Bitcoin. And look how interesting it is that while the orange line continues to trend up, except for one small little dip right here in like March, the Bitcoin chart has been highly correlated, indicated by this green line. Both are consistently trending up, and then IBIT remains flat for a little while. In other words, the demand doesn't increase too much, and then you see another spike of demand. So a lot of this Bitcoin that's leaving exchanges is likely being custodied by major players like Coinbase and even Ripple, but everyone that's buying the IBIT spot ETF doesn't seem to want to be selling it, and instead they're holding on to it even at the current price we're at of $109,000 through all of this volatility and noise, FUD, and you name it. And the same is true for MicroStrategy, which rebranded to Strategy, where their Bitcoin holdings have consistently risen alongside Bitcoin and the stock price. And guess what? These guys are also not selling. Now, that remains to be seen what's going to occur with the market when they do start to sell their shares of Bitcoin, but I don't think a strategy ever will, whereas an IBIT with BlackRock, right, is at the mercy of a lot of their customers. So whenever we start to see a lot of those Bitcoins re-enter the market and their spot ETF holdings start to decline, that's going to be a good indicator that a lot of people in the market are ready to take profit. Right now, that is not the case, and big players like Strategy are likely keeping the market up. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around why that is and who's behind Bitcoin and what their plans and purposes are. Personally, I don't care. What I found to happen is that when Bitcoin is in a major bull market, the rest of the crypto market follows. So Bitcoin being in a good place is very good for XRP. Now, speaking of XRP, Gemini did make a cryptic tweet on November 2nd stating next week's looking real XRP coded, and there's been a lot of speculation and noise surrounding that. So although we don't know exactly what is coming, at least what Gemini is referring to, we do know one thing: there's probably a lot of demand for XRP on Gemini, which is why Gemini introduced a credit card not too long ago called the XRP Edition, which was designed for XRP enthusiasts, and this metal card gave up to 4% back in XRP instantly, which is absolutely huge. In other words, when you were spending on this credit card, you could earn up to 4% back on every purchase with no annual fee, and that 4% would be mostly for gas, EV, and transit, whereas if you did it with dining, it'd be 3%. And this was introduced back in August, so rewards are probably subject to change at some point in time. It always happens with all credit cards. I remember when Crypto.com offered something similar, those percentages went down over time as there was more adoption and growth, which is typically what happens with incentives in the crypto space anyways. However, we do know that the Ripple Swell Conference will be occurring in New York on November 4th and 5th. So this upcoming week, Gemini will be there. And it is interesting that at the same time, there's a lot of speculation that this November, the XRP ETF approvals will be happening, as Canary Capital's filing has increased the amount of whales that are entering the space, with XRP currently sitting at 250. So an approval on November 13th could mark a major turning point for XRP, where we really start to see some major breakouts to the upside. This would be the actual first US spot ETF. We have an ETF in Canada, and that's been great, but it is not the US market, and it has not been offered to all of the institutional players in the United States, at least from a client level, right? There's a lot of major funds that have billions and trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines with customers that would like to buy XRP. They just haven't been able to do it because there's been no spot ETF, which is what creates real demand and will drive a lot of XRP off exchanges, off DeFi, and sitting inside of retirement accounts and pensions, which is where the real money is. And again, this is probably going to happen through Canary funds at first, and this matters because institutional access will now climb, as Bitwise's CIO predicts XRP ETFs could become a $1 billion fund in the first few months. And by the way, if Canary funds gets approved, there are 7 other major firms that have pending applications, and guess what? The SEC isn't trying to create issues or controversy. If they approve one, they're going to have to approve others that have also applied in the same manner. In other words, XRP is at a crucial point, and we're going to cover it on the chart here in just a second, but we had some really good news from David Schwartz, who responded to a post from the Wolf of All Streets, and you can go ahead and check this out. It was made on October 30th, talking about how the XRP ledger was designed and yada, yada, yada. David Schwartz came and chimed in and stated something pretty cool. He said, do you want to use a blockchain where people can be their own bank and no middleman tax their transactions? Or do you want to be someone else's bank and tax their transactions? If you want the latter, there are dozens of blockchains for you. If you want the former, there's XRP, where you are your own bank. There are no middlemen to tax your transactions. He does think the XRP special place on the XRPL, right? The XRP ledger is run on XRP, ensures that XRP will capture some of the value of XRPL transactions and that which they generate. XRP is the only asset without a counterparty that can be accessed by every account in every jurisdiction with no risk of default, freeze, or clawback. Now, this is very much different from RLUSD, which will also run on the XRPL. XRP, however, that is traded will not be at risk of default, freeze, or clawback. So there's a major distinction. And the reason is because cryptos like XRP are different assets completely. They're designed to do different things, like run the XRP ledger versus the RLUSD, which is a stable coin, is going to be subject to laws and regulations inside of the United States. And it's important that if it's going to be trusted by institutional players, that it needs certain things like this in place to be compliant. Still a really cool statement from David Schwartz talking about the value of XRP inside of the XRPL. So before we dive into that Ray Dalio video, as well as a post on Warren Buffett and his cash pile and what comes next for markets, I want to focus in on XRP because the price action can tell us a lot about what is going to come next. So as you can see here on that October 10th dump, the market rallied a little bit only to be sold off further or deeper below the actual range close right here at 230. And we put in a wick low at about 218 before pumping for some new local highs up to about 270, which seems to be a pretty strong resistance as that was a prior support right up here. You can see that not only we almost touched down once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. So what became a resistance was a support. That said, we do seem to be a bit range bound right now, putting in highs of about 265, while at the same time seeing a pretty strong support with a bear trap right around here on October 17th. Every single time we touch about 235, we're seeing support. The one thing that leads me to believe that it's likely that we continue to trend to the upside is, first and foremost, Bitcoin is in a strong bull market. This October, although it was very weak, could shape up to be the support we needed or the fuel we needed for a blast off to new highs. Also, I'm starting to notice that we are creating a new local trend, right? We have our major low right here. We have a high which is lower than the prior high. But what's interesting is between this high and this low, we have a new low right after and a new high. So at this moment in time, we are officially printing a new short to medium term uptrend for a series of what? Higher highs and higher lows. These lows right here and this strong wick on the downside is an indicator that the local bottom seems to be in right here at October 17th because these lows are higher than the prior lows, which leads me to believe that if we touch this range once or even twice more, maybe sometime into the middle of November into an XRP spot ETF listing, we really don't know when this is going to occur. We know that it's coming though, and it's likely that we are getting it this year no matter what, that news might be enough to push the price right through this range of 270 and back into its healthy trajectory of a bull market. Either way, we are already seeing an uptrend right here, and so I expect us to get back up to 266 and even 270 here in the near term. And that's as long as Bitcoin holds up. You can see that consistently we've been being supported right here, even from a weekly time frame, above the $108 to $105,000 level. Our average level being at about $106,000 to $107,000. And again, as long as Bitcoin remains above there, totally fine and happy. As long as Bitcoin is range bound below $122,000 to $123,000, totally fine. Again, this October is very different than prior Octobers where we are already in the middle or near the end of a bear market. Being that we are still in all-time high territory, we've just been in a long, strong range. So if we start to trend back to the upside and back up to at least $120,000 sometime this November, things are going to be looking really good. To further confirm this, we are still above that 40-week EMA or SMA, I should say, a simple moving average. And whenever we've been above there, as you can see, starting back in March of 2023, we've been in a strong bull market. Every single time we pull back into the range, or even had one situation where for 2 weeks we had a bear trap below the range in September of 2024. Either way, we are consistently being supported here, and now we are very close where we don't have a long deviation away from that line. So things are looking very healthy above our range resistance, which now is a support going all the way back to June. 2, we are above this SMA. 3, a lot of Bitcoin is leaving exchanges and staying off exchanges, which is an indicator of strong hands and demand. And so all of these factors combined lead me to believe that not only are we still in a bull market, but we'll know if the bull market is over when Bitcoin either dumps back below 106 and definitely below this 40-week moving average, below about $104,000. At that moment in time, I think XRP is likely going to follow, which is really where we're going to have to pay attention. But as long as Bitcoin is in this range, I think XRP easily has another shot at putting in some new all-time highs this year, especially with all that positive news and an ETF. And then further looking into the seasonality, you can see that November is consistently easily the best month of all months in Bitcoin return history. It's either very nasty or extremely good. But when you average it all out, November turns into a 35% gain. And so yes, we are going to want to watch Bitcoin into these situations. Either way, the entire global market is a bit skittish, and there's been a large flight to gold or cash. As you can see, Warren Buffett's cash pile is now larger than the market cap of every single company in the world except for 30 of them, which is absolutely insane, at about $382 billion. And he's consistently been the best investor in history. And I'm not saying what he did in the past would work today, right? The guy doesn't love crypto or Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter. He knows something is coming, and so does Ray Dalio when he was speaking at the Greenwich Economic Forum. Let's have a listen.
It's likely that those deficits will then produce lots of bond sales, which will compound it. When you get into the point in the cycle where debt is needed to pay debt and compounds, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem also for the central banks, because the central banks, by the way, this is not just an American problem, this is a world problem. The central banks themselves own the debt. And so, and they lose money on the debt. And so when they're losing money on the debt, and they have asset liability problems, then they also not only have to monetize essentially the government's debt, but they also have to monetize theirs. And those are the characteristics that produce a deterioration in the monetary order. And that's, that's why what you're seeing. You're seeing a dynamic of why countries, for example, are letting their reserves or their assets in bonds and so on go down, and they're acquiring and have been acquiring gold, for example. So gold is a currency. We think of currencies as being the major fiat currency, but gold is a currency. It's the second largest reserve currency.
And so it is very much possible that we are in for an economic downturn of epic proportions. The real question is when. And I think maybe it's possible we get a 2026 move through the end of next year, but it's more likely we see some blow off tops and rallies through the end of this year, potentially into the start of next year. And 2026 turns into a very poor performing year for crypto, potentially even a bear market, as we see an unwind in the global financial system. And so the real question becomes, will there be a flight into digital assets, and will it start to be treated more like gold, where money flows into Bitcoin and then flows into all of the other major market cap cryptos, just like XRP? If there ever was a cycle to witness history, this would be the one. So yes, I still think we are in a bull market, but I actually am starting to believe that we're near the end of a bull market. I believe a lot of great financial minds would agree with that, as the NASDAQ just rallied for what looks to be an exhaustion pump. And so I would practice more caution right now, even if you want to catch that last leg up. And for XRP, watch that $2.65 range closely up to $2.70. Thanks so much for watching this video, my friend. I hope you enjoyed it. Also, be sure to check out I Trust Capital to get ahead on your crypto retirement account. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.